We're going to go ahead and get started with today's session. Welcome to Stratum Insight. My name is Adam Kurtz. I'll be stepping you through today's topic. And as you can see, it's going to be talking about Stratum Analyst Hub. If you don't know what Analyst Hub is, it's basically a way for you to basically easily create sales plans, budgets, forecasts. That data might be existing in certain files, Excel or other sources, text files perhaps, database tables. You can tap into all of those things to import that data into Stratum. So we'll kind of cover that process today. I'll show you some examples of using that data import process to import sales plans or a budget so that you can get some of that data into Stratum for further analysis, so that you can track your budget and see if you're over or under. A good thing to know. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. There's also a data copy feature and planning feature we'll kind of cover as well. So you can use existing sales history to also use that to leverage a budget or a forecast. So we'll go through that. We'll go through a demo, and we'll talk about the Analyst Hub and getting data imported into your Stratum application. Here we can see that we've got the Stratum Analyst Hub down here on the Stratum pinwheel, where, as you can see, the data import, spreadsheet import is available as part of the features available within that hub. A data copy as well, multi-level planning, and that master file import as well. We won't focus too much on that today, but you can also import attributes for certain level product, customers, you name it, and you can get those imported as well. Data import access requires certain types of licensing so that you can get access to these features. We could talk about that if you have questions about your license with us. But basically, if you're a named user license, you already have access to it if you're not aware of that. And then also you could certainly purchase a Stratum Analyst Hub license if you're not fully licensed for it as well. This requires SQL Server. The complete Stratum must reside completely on SQL Server for this to work. And then, of course, you need to be on at least version 7.1 or greater. Here we can see some of the formatting of the files that you can have in this example, Excel, where we have what we call a horizontal time period, where, as you can see, the monthly buckets or my monthly columns of data are going across horizontally on my file. That's what we typically call like a time series file as well. And this is classic. This is a classic format of the file that you would use to import the data into Stratum. Of course, you might want to put in you might want to have two headers here where you can actually have the measure name in there as well. I'll show you an example of that in the demo. Another type of file that you can use to import data into Stratum for your budget or your plan is what we call a transactional file. So this is more of a file where the time periods are going downward into more of a vertical format. And so this is a classic table record, in my opinion, where we've got a timestamp for the record, the different levels, and then, as you can see, the data columns over there to the right for my projected sales or projected units, whatever you want to do to import that data. Whatever type of data you want to import, that would be within the file, of course. So those are two classic file formats, and they could be in text files. A tab delimited text file would suffice as well. I think I have an example of that I'll show you today. So either way, some of the more current versions of Stratum allow you to, yes, you only need to be on 7.1, but if you're on the more recent version, 7.6, you would actually be able to import data from ASCII text files and Excel files, as well as database tables. So it's a lot more robust on the more recent versions of Stratum. How do we get to the data import menus within Stratum once you're in the interface and ready to import the data from that Excel file into Stratum? As you can see, there's on older versions, you'll have a different menu called Admin Utilities. If you go into that, you'll see a data import option there. And if you're on 7.3 or greater, you'll see a hamburger menu in the upper right-hand menu of the Stratum interface. And if you click on that and go to Analyst Tools, you'll see data import as well. So either way, it'll take you to the same menu, the data import menu, where you'll see a list of all the past jobs that you've submitted. Each one of those jobs has a log file that you can go into and analyze. So if you just highlight the data import job and click on the log file button, which is right next to the new button there, you can get a log of the prior jobs that you've run. Another thing that you can do here is you can import data. You can create a new import, of course. So by clicking on the green plus the file menu option there, you'll be able to create a new import job. It'll then prompt you to select a file. So you want to go grab your file that you formatted and you crafted. So now you've got that file selected. Here's also another example. If the file exists on the cloud, you can then go in and select where that file might be, whether it's a local file or if it's on Azure. And is it a SQL Server database table? So these are the different options you'll choose to on the version 7.6. So this is what I call the more robust version, where you can not only import a local file, but you can go out on Azure and select a file there. You can go into a SQL Server database on your network or in Azure and select a table there. So it gets way more robust on the later version here in Stratum. Once you grab the file or whatever source that you choose, you want to go ahead and configure the import. It'll actually do this automatically for you, depending, of course, if you've imported it before. But let's say, obviously, this is a new import. So it's going to ask you, well, tell me, please, what type of file this is. Where do we want to put it? What target category do we want to put it in? Um, is the file delimited in a certain way? Is there a tab delimited, comma? You name it. You have different delimiter options there. Text field quotes are typically double quoted, so you'll just select that as well. So once you make your selections here, you click OK, and then it imports the data into the mapping menu, where you can then go ahead and proceed the mapping. Here again is more of an example of opening up files from the cloud, from Azure, as you can see the different options there. Okay, so and then you'll need to, like I said, configure the file. Here's a configuration file from an import from an Excel file. We can tell it where we want to put it, and then we tell it how many header rows we have in the file and what the actual date format looks like. I'll step you through this in the demo, and you'll see how this works. More, again, cloud import. If you were grabbing the file from a cloud import, similar situation here where you need to tell it, what a little bit more information about that file. Where are we putting it? What type of format is it? How many header rows? Doesn't really matter whether it is Excel on your local laptop or out on the cloud. You're going to be asked the same question here. Another new feature is what we call import templates, and this allows you to use a template for transaction-based sources so that you don't have to do the mapping over and over again. So it's a nice feature to use for automation. And there is, as we can see, there's a template you can create on the fly, and so that it remembers the next time you want to import that same file with new data, it'll know how to map the data via the template that you create. So when you import that same file the next time, you'll select what template you want to use. There's also a new Stratum Cloud Import API, which allows you to create process imports with URL calls. So this would be compatible with Azure sources, local SQL Server databases. So you can do, some more sophisticated things with this feature. Other ways to work with import API you can use with websites or web services. and you can use Azure Data Factory to import data from your data pipeline. You can run these imports right away, or you can schedule them using the app's event criteria tools. So you can get pretty sophisticated with how you want to import data and the different tools that are available with the new 7.6 version, which we are now just about to release 7.7. So I'll be doing a session on that next in 2 weeks from today. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Another new feature from 7.6 is the data steward designation, so that when you can assign to a user profile, which gives them those cloud features. So if you just want to keep data import simple for certain users, you can do that. Or if you want to open up those cloud source options, then you can assign to those users the data steward designation, and that would allow them to bring in files not only from local Excel and text file sources, but also then reach out to the cloud to get them as well. So it just gives us more information about what I just explained. Essentially, it opens up those import sources so that they can grab them from the cloud. And then there's the mapping. We kind of go, I'll show you the demo of this, but once you select your file, it depends on whether you've done it before or if you're using a template, whether you have to do some mapping. But this is the area that you'll see where you'll go in and you'll review the mapping and make any necessary adjustments. Once you're done with the mapping, you're ready to go ahead and import the data. So then, as you can see, it verifies it, and then you can go ahead and kick the job off to process the import. You'll get an email confirming that the job is ready and that the data has been imported. And then you can go ahead and run views once you get that email, and you'll be able to see that data within a view that you just imported. So, and then it goes the PowerPoint itself kind of goes into um, essentially the master file import process, which like I said, we're not going to spend too much time on. We're going to go ahead and just go into a demonstration of where we would go to kick off a data import. Also, where would we go to kick off a data copy, which we talked a little bit about on the agenda. And then can we also use some planning capabilities to adjust some numbers that we've either imported or copied or both. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So here I am in the version 7.6. So this is the most recent GA version. And like I said, you'll go to your hamburger menu to Analyst Tools. And there you'll see the different options for data copy, data import. Here's where you can manage your data import templates. And then if you want to import an attribute, there's your master data import. So first off, let's take a look at the data copy feature. We won't kick off a live job for that, but we will take a look at the menus of, first of all, how we can create a budget from either using history within Stratum or by using a file either locally or on the cloud. If I go into data copy, it's going to show me all the different data copy jobs that we've run prior. And if we want to kick off a new one, we can go ahead and click on new, and then we can go ahead and define the data copy job. So the first thing is this will be the data copy name, the name of the job. Put in your email of where you want it to be sent once it's complete, and then what you want the email to actually say. Then we go into the mapping, and this is where you'll map to the history that you might want to use for your source. And then where do we want to put it? Typically, we'd put it in something like a budget, maybe a forecast or a sales plan or something along those lines. Now we need to select the measures we want to use for the history copy. So if we want to copy sales amount and use that for my budget amount working, then I can go ahead and make that copy job. And I can apply a factor to it on the fly. So if I want to add, subtract, or divide, or in this case, multiply by maybe 1.05, and that would increase everything by 5%. So it not only will it copy it, but it'll apply the math accordingly, and then you'll end up with a budget that's 5% greater than last year's sales. If I want to add any other measures, I can do another row and I can add more measures as needed. If I want to do time mapping, and of course I have to, I need to tell it and do the mapping of what year I want to use for my copy. So if I want to use a full year, then I can go ahead and define the year and go to the end of the year as well. So I've got January through December, and then I want to map that to my months for a future year. And I'll go ahead and make the necessary mappings for a 2025. Actually, in 2026 now, I get it, but we can make sure that we can use 2025, of course, and then map that to 2026 if we wanted to do something like that, right? 1 year at a time is recommended. You can go into time mapping details to get more information about what you just did and how you map that. So it'll give you like a nice little preview of the mapping you just did. And then finally, do you want to apply any filters? So for instance, maybe you don't want to duplicate the entire history. Maybe you want to just grab a division. And so you'll be able to filter on maybe just food service so that you're not doing the complete business. Don't have to do a filter, but if you wanted to, you can certainly just filter, make the necessary filters, and then um, go ahead and map it out. Once you're done, you save it, and then you kick it off, and you process it, or you can process it right off, right out of the gate. If I wanted to go ahead and process it from here, I would click on the process button, and it would then kick off a process for me. So that's the data copy feature. And that would then go ahead and copy data into a budget category where I can then go in and make adjustments to it. Another way to get data in is using the data import feature, which is what we kind of just talked about, using a file. So let's take a look at the files we'll be using. So first off, out of the gates, I'll be using this sales plan example file. And this is kind of what that file looks like. As you can see, it's a flat file in nature with a header row. It's got two header rows like I recommended. The first header is giving us information about the columns that we have. So it's naming the columns of our data. And if it matches your dimensions, you're gonna benefit from that so that it does some smart mapping for you. So you definitely want to match up your metadata there, your column headers, with the dimensions that you're importing into Stratum. And then there is my measure names. So that's in there as well. And then my second header has those dates. So it knows where to put the data, what month to put the data into when the job runs. So that's what the file looks like. Nothing crazy. I've got region, sold to, brand, product. Got a couple of attributes. So I'll end up ignoring some things as well. So that's what that file looks like. And then you also will have a file in here that will look like a text file. So here we've got a text file. And that's what another file I'll use as my source is this text file here. So I have an option, right? I can either use an Excel file or a text file to import the data. So it's flexible in terms of what you can do there. Okay, so let's take a look at how we would do that. Let's go ahead and kick off a new import job. We'll grab that sales plan example file I just showed you from my local laptop. And then here is where I can go ahead and, well, I don't have to do anything. As you can see, it smart mapped everything. It's ready to go. So I can just kick this off and submit it, and it will actually submit the job and run it. Notice how everything is mapped to, my dimension here is mapped to region. I've got another column here mapped to sold to. We're ignoring some other columns here. Maybe we don't need them. We've got the product level in there mapped. Here we have the measures that are all automatically mapped, so I don't have to tell it where to put those. There are my dates. So it knows everything. So it's ready to go. I can actually kick this off and it'll actually process. So again, you have different options. Let's take a look at what would happen if I were to use data import for um, that text file. So if we use the text file here, we can see that now we're going to need to tell it where to put it, how it's delimited for a tab delimit, double quotes for my field quotes. And then voila, there's no mapping other than my date column, which got mapped. And that is actually not right. So we need to adjust that. Here we need to map this to a dimension. So now you're seeing how to map something that hasn't been mapped before, right? My region over here is my measure. So, and I put that into like a gross, put budgeted sales or whatever your measure name would be there. I could go ahead and kick this off and it would actually submit for processing as well. So that's okay. There's actually something there that you can see. It's telling us that these product regions don't really exist. So that's okay because you might have new regions that you're defining, et cetera. But I'm glad this did this because as you can see, it checks the data. It's not just going to willy-nilly import it. It's going to warn you about these things, right? It can't find any matching master files for these ship to regions, and it warned me about that because I might have an error in my file. Maybe these are wrong codes, right? They could either be one of two things: errors from the user or new regions that Stratum doesn't know about, which you'll still be allowed to import because we know that, for future forecasts or sales plans, you might have new customers or new products that you want to introduce. Well, you may not have those master file records in Stratum yet, but you can still import the data. We don't care. We will warn you, but you can still import the data and move about your business. Once you have those master files imported into Stratum, guess what? They'll marry right up to those new codes, just like Stratum does. It does its magic with the data. So there's no worries there. So once the master file imports run, once those records are available in your ERP master tables, then you're good to go. You shouldn't have to worry about it. All right. So once you get the data in, what does it look like? I mean, what can we do? Well, basically, you can go in and take a look at it. So if we run a file here or a view, we can see what this data looked like that I just imported. So here's that data that was in my budget Excel file. So here's all the different levels that we copied it in, right? We didn't copy these attributes or these descriptions. They're already there because of the master file loads. So these are items that we've already sold in prior years and that exist in your ERP. So, the master file data just shows up. So that's cool. And there's our budget data. If I want to change that, maybe a highlight is just for a given month. As you can see, everything works just like it should within Stratum. Now it's just January, and I can add in February, March, and build out more of a time series view if I wanted to. Another thing I can do is once I start gathering sales data for that year, then I can go ahead and bring that in for analysis. So now I've got the data, the budget that I brought in from Excel. Now I've got this sales transactions that I've occurred throughout the year. I can do some math on that to see how I'm doing. And I know my sales data is not for a full year. So if we adjust this to just be to current month, um, we can adjust that as well to be current month. Then we can have more of an apples comparison here, and that the data looks a lot better there. You can do it to prior to previous closed month, whatever you want to do there. But as you can see, then now I'm starting to build a view behind for the data that I imported from Excel. Now the user's actually using the data within Stratum the way they want to, right? And this is exactly what they would want to do. I can add in a variance column if I want to add in a calculated measure here. I can then do some math on that column of data that I just imported. do sales minus my budget. I could do something like that, or I can do, if I go into some of the Stratum viewer functions, I can do a quick percent change on sales versus my budget, throw in a display mask with the 2 decimal spots for my percent of change, put a quick header on there, and boom, I'm off and running. And there it is. So not too bad, actually. It's we're exceeding our budget, so I can actually sort this, and we're doing quite well. Actually, we're doing pretty good in terms of our budget versus our forecast, or our sales versus our budget. Numbers look really good. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, you can build around that data you just imported and really kind of use that for your analysis. Save this away, put on a some traffic light on that column there, so you can highlight anything negative. Conditional format, negative in red perhaps might pop out at you a little bit more in case there is some negatives in there. We can turn the sorter around and boom, there's our negatives showing in red. So these are things that we want to take a look at. Why aren't these items hitting our budget? Again, we're just looking at a specific sold to. So, but yeah, we can do our analysis here, and now we have the budget with Stratum. So whether that comes from a file or from your data copy job, it is what it is. Then you can go ahead and do your analysis. Other things you can do also is make adjustments to a copied data. So if I want to go in and maybe make adjustments to my Eastern region, maybe I'm the director of sales there. And now I'm doing some forecasting for next year's sales. Here I've got a view for my next year for my Eastern region, and I can see this year and last year's sales for January of next year. And I can have a quick data points of how this year and last year are doing. And I can go in and make adjustments to my forecast. So if I want to bump that down a little bit or bump it up, whatever you want to do there to uh, bolster the forecast, you can make your adjustments there. So if I want to make this, maybe bring this down to 7,900, now I'm actually making adjustments to the forecast. So you can do this live within the view, as you can see, and you can start modeling out your forecast month by month for all the different brands that you're planning for within your region. So yeah, you'll decide this year, last year, next year, what it's going to look like. As you can see, they're going with an aggressive approach, or I can come down here to the total and I can change the total instead of so as you can see, this year's sales 345, the prior year 265. So this might be a good call, or I can change it if I wanted to maybe ratchet it down a little bit more, maybe something like 410. So I put it in 410, and as you can see, it smooths out, changes all the brands amounts accordingly. It retains the ratio of sales, and then you go ahead once you're ready to go ahead and save the changes that you just made. You go ahead and kick that job off to process the changes, and then that 410,000 for February of next year would be my saved forecast, and then I'll also make the change over here for January as well. So there, it's done. It's went ahead and saved my changes, and now I've got my 410,000 in there as my official forecast for next February.